In Rise of Kingdoms, there are tons of ways to get value on the open field and improve your trade, but at the end of the day, what are you really trading? Well, you're trading resources and you're trading speed up. So, in today's video, I'm going to be updating my resource gathering guide, how to get as many resources as possible for the lowest amount of effort and the maximum amount of value for the lowest amount spent. So, if you want to be able to maximize the amount of resources you are getting in Rise of Kingdoms, you want to become as rich as possible, you want to stick around till the end of the video. Now, let's start off today's video by discussing one of the most important things for gathering, and that is your gathering commanders, since they are probably going to give you one of, if not the largest boost for all your gathering. They have so many stats which they will be giving you, and the first thing that is really good about gathering commanders, and is probably what gives them the most value, is literally their gathering talent tree. I know that sounds a little bit crazy, because when we think about fighting commanders, their talent tree is good and all, but the main thing you look at is their skills. But with gathering commanders, the talent tree gives them the most value, because for just 37 points, you can improve like your overall gathering speed for one resource by a minimum of 55%, which is crazy good. So with gathering commanders, their talent tree is the most important thing, and really simply, for any gathering commander you're going to be running, level 37 is probably the highest level you'll need to go. You can go to level 40 if you want a few extra points, and I'll show you where I put those. But for the early game, if you rush as many low-level gathering commanders like Centurion and your blue gathering commanders to level 37 because they cost less XP as quick as possible, you're in a good position because they can hold a decent amount of troops, and then they've got a ton of gathering stats that go with them. They've got 30% of stats for any resource that you choose. They've got extra resources upon completing gathering, and then they've even got another 25% gathering speed for any resource in the game. So you can tell right off the bat that these gathering trees are really powerful, and all you need to get level 5 on superior tools is level 37. If you want to go to level 40, you can grab this extra siege march speed, which means that if you do get attacked when you're in a gathering node, you can get away quicker, and you can obviously go from your node to your city even quicker, which will save you some time. But in the long haul, this isn't really that big, and most players will send their gatherers off and log in maybe like an hour or two after they're done. No one's really sitting there watching their commanders. But if you're trying to micro-optimize your gathering, getting modified Axle is worth it. It's just not something you really need to focus on. Maybe more of an endgame thing, because XP is actually quite important in the early game. But if you're in the early game, you don't need modified Axle. Just try and get to superior tools as soon as possible to get as many gathering stats as possible. If you are in the very early game and you don't have 37 stats, the best way to actually upgrade into your gathering tree is to go straight for the more the better. Follow this path right here. It'll allow you to save a few stats in terms of gathering for Mastery Wood, probably around 3 points maximum, and you're going to get the more the better at level, I think it's like 24 maybe, which is obviously cheaper than having to go to level 27, which is where you would have to go if you wanted to get the more the better and you had the gathering mastery for wood. So if you're in a very new account, or you're making a new farm account, get to the more the better, then go get gathering mastery for wood and work your way up to superior tools. That's going to be how to maximize your value for your talent points. Especially with young accounts, it can be difficult to get as many talent points in the right spots, and if you charge for the more the better first, you're going to get obviously more value as you work on maxing out that commander fully. Now that we know the talents for gathering commanders, let me give one quick tip in terms of their skills for newer players, and that is, if you're new to the game, for any of the commanders I'm showing you on the screen besides Centurion, the green one, you want to go straight for their second skill. It's going to be the most important skill in their whole entire kit, giving you the most gathering speed. For every single gathering commander there is, that second skill is what gives you their gathering speed. Otherwise, they aren't getting any other gathering speed from other skills. So if you want to make gathering commanders, ignore every other skill in their kit and just try and get this secondary skill. Don't bother maxing the active skill first. Don't try and get the third and fourth skills. Just get that secondary skill and you're in a good position. For Centurion, you just get the third skill instead. Really simply, but he's a very cheap commander, so you can just max him as you go. It doesn't really matter. But you want to get that third skill probably as your first target, since it is gathering speed and troop load. One thing to note with gathering commanders is troop load is useful, but it's not 100% needed. Now in the endgame, troop load is okay because it's going to save you some severely wounded units if someone attacks you inside a resource node, since you have less troops in there. But you're going to have more than enough troops to fully gather a resource node. But in the early game, troop load can be really good because it allows you to gather more resources for less troops. And when you're struggling to fill up a resource node completely and take it, then this is going to give you more value because you can go to sleep and literally just get straight up more resources because your troops can hold more resources. So troop load is important in the early game, but I still wouldn't say it's a main focus. It should still be probably a secondary focus. So always get the gathering speed, then the troop load secondary. Now, the last tip I can give for gathering commanders is that often in their kit, they have one resource that they favor over another, whether it be wood, food, stone, or gold. Pretty much every gathering commander, beside a few, will gather one resource slightly quicker. And here's a quick rundown of which commanders can gather what. We got Centurion, he's a generic gatherer, he gathers anything. Gaius Marius gathers mainly food, that's what he specializes in. Constance is mainly a wood gatherer. Saka is a mixture, you can use her on anything. Queen Tamara of Georgia is mainly a wood gatherer. Matilda is mainly a stone gathering commander. So is Cleopatra, she gets the most bonus on stone. Ishida is actually a food gathering commander. Sundok is the only gold gathering commander in the game. And Joan of Arc is the most generic gathering, with a 25% gathering speed bonus to any resource. Out of most of the commanders I mentioned, some don't actually have gold gathering speed, so do keep that in mind if you're gathering gold. You want to make sure that your generic commanders are actually set to be your main gold gatherers. So, because most commanders which specialize in a resource, I think every single one of them doesn't have gold bonus. So Gaius doesn't, Constance doesn't have gold bonus, Queen Tamara of Georgia doesn't have gold bonus, Matilda doesn't, Cleopatra doesn't, and Ishida don't. You don't really want them to be gathering your gold. You mainly want your Sundok, your Joan, your Saka, and also your Centurion to be gathering the gold, since they will get the most bonuses from that gold. They will gather slightly quicker than the other commanders, which is definitely a benefit to them, because every other commander I mentioned does not gather gold nearly as quick and won't give you as many resources. Now, the best way I've found for these gathering commanders to gather the resource you want is not really just to go up to the node. Like, yes, sometimes the game does select the right commanders, but you can see right here, they've taken my Joan of Arc, which I would rather gather gold, and put it with my Constance. Yes, Constance is a wood commander, but with my Joan, I would probably run like my Constance with my Queen Tamara of Georgia to get maximum wood gathering speed. So do keep that in mind. So if you want to make those gathering as efficient as possible, you want to use the correct commanders. And what I recommend usually is just have a commander loadout saved for each one. So my slot number 1 is my wood gathering, my slot number 2 is my gold gathering, and that's set to 50,000 units so I can put it into a gold pit. My slot number 3 is my food gathering, slot number 4 is just my stone gathering, and then slot number 5 is my mixed resource. So this can be food, wood, stone, gold, doesn't matter, this march can go anywhere, and I've set it to enough units to fill up completely a level 6 resource node. I will change that when I reach KVK, so really simply, I do recommend having these commander loadouts and just sending them like this. It's going to be the most efficient way if you're looking to gather a mixture of resources, because you will get the most value from that. So now that we know just about everything to do with commanders, I have a few tips also relating to gear and equipment. And really simply, with equipment for gathering commanders, I just recommend getting the blue gathering gear. For every single gathering commander that you own, even if they're not going to be primary, you might as well grab it just in case you one day use them as a primary, because the blue gathering gear is really cheap. When we look at it, 4-piece set, it's going to cost you 12 million gold total, and it's going to make you way more than 12 million gold. In total, I think you get around a 30% gathering speed bonus. With some troop stats, you get some load as well, so if you get attacked on the open field, you're going to do slightly better in the trade. Yes, it's still going to be bad, but it's more bearable. If you are able to gather more resources with it, obviously you're going to gather quicker, and also the troop load allows you to put less troops in a resource node. So the blue set is really good, even if you just get 2 pieces on every single gathering commander instead of 4, just to get that 2-piece set bonus, it's certainly justifiable. And if you want to fully maximize your speed, you can grab a gloves, and also basically this is like a weapon, I guess, for gathering, which you can use on your commanders, because there are no blue gathering gloves and there's no blue gathering weapon. But for the rest of the pieces, the chestplate and the helmet, there is another blue piece. There is no also blue gathering boots, so I wouldn't recommend getting the legendary. I think they're too expensive for what they're giving, but they are an option if you want to have a full gathering set, including boots. One thing I would also like to mention is that Peter's Sickle, which I'm pretty sure you can get from the Lost Canyon, is actually not bad value. 10% gathering speed for pretty much just 8 million gold, some bones, which are almost useless, and obviously Lost Canyon currency, which is almost useless, is pretty good value. So if you want to run Peter's Sickle on some of your gathering marches, especially your gold gathering march, that can be very valuable since gold is your main resource. So really what I recommend, maybe grab a Peter's Sickle if you're willing, and then just get a full blue gathering set, which you can get super easily, whether it be through Crystal Tavern or even through the VIP shop. You'll be able to get a full set within maybe like 3 weeks. That's what I noticed. I could make a full set every 3 weeks. I've come to the point now where I start selling some of the pieces because I've got so many available to me. So overall, just making a bit of equipment for your commanders will go a long way, and it definitely will help you in the late run. The next tip I can give for gathering commanders is really simple, and it's just grab the line formation and slap it on all your commanders. I have to put it on my Matilda since I changed her recently, but really, line formation on any commander is going to work very well because you're getting extra gathering speed. It's almost always related to gold, and there's also just 10% extra gathering speed on the formation itself. So even if you have no armaments on that formation and you've just got the formation equipped, it's pretty much just a win all around. So just have that formation equipped. It's literally free. All your gathering commanders should be running it. I'm pretty sure all my gathering commanders are currently running it. And then as you go, whenever you're doing like your travels, maybe you get a gathering basically armament, just save it and put it on your commanders. It's free amounts of gathering speed, and in the late game, that's definitely going to be a nice thing to have. Literally, free stats for some action points is a big thing, and as I've been working through the game, I've been trying to put some of these more valuable pieces onto my commanders. So you'll notice that I've got some commanders with full sets, some commanders without sets. Really, I'm just trying to focus on getting as much gold gathering and troop load and all that stuff onto these commanders. And even better, if you can get a legendary that's got a talent on it, you can put that onto your commanders, and it might have something that's going to give you extra gathering speed. Now, that's very rare, but it is certainly a possibility, which would be very good. So just get the line formation, see if you can get anything with gathering speed, and put it on your commanders. It's always going to be a nice and almost free thing to do. I wouldn't go out of my way to try and get gathering armaments, but if you get them, might as well use them. It's literally free. Now, the next tip I can give you for gathering and Rise of Kingdoms is to improve your gathering speed. There are a few things you can do very simply, and first of all, running a gathering boost just gives you 50% gathering speed. You should have one of these up 24/7 if you are gathering. You can see I didn't have one up, but now I do, and I've just improved my gathering speed by 50% for 24 hours, and they're really cheap. They're like, I think, 600,000 resources, usually from the courier station. You'll get some 8-hour ones if you're in a big alliance where people purchase bundles. They're really easy to get. You can see I've got a ton in my stash, and even with these extra resource tokens, they're a nice another way to get resources. If you just use those boosts, you'll notice that you're going to be pretty much up every single time you use them. Once your resource nodes, I'm pretty sure, are level 16. So let's say I've got all of my stone things to level 16. Using a stone boost will pay me more resources than it would cost to buy it from the courier station. So running those boosts 24/7 is also really good. I always forget to do them, but you shouldn't forget. Don't be like me. Try and remember, whenever you log on, if these boosts are not there, just run them. They're really cheap, and they're always going to give you more value. The other tip I can give you is when you're gathering resources, if you're trying to really optimize your speed or even help your alliance, gather on your alliance territory, because alliance territory is going to give you extra resources in terms of how fast you gather, and it's going to give you even more resources because it goes towards your alliance territory resource earnings and also your alliance basically overall resources, which are going to be in your storehouse. So you'll notice the more you gather on alliance territory, A, the more you help your alliance, and B, the more resources you get from territory bonus. You're basically helping yourself and your allies. It's really good, and you're going to get more gathering speed. You're going to be giving your alliance back extra things, and pretty much always in the early game, they're asking you to gather on territory. So if possible, if you're an alliance that needs resources, gather on territory. If you want extra gathering speed, also gather on territory. I think it's going to reduce the time to like gather a level 5 resource node by around 20 minutes compared to being off territory. So definitely worth gathering on territory if you want to fully maximize your gathering bonuses. The next tip I can give you to earn resources, which is not necessarily related to gathering, is to be doing barbarians or barbarian forts. Make sure your action point bar is never full. As you can see, mine currently is not full, and just kill barbarians. They actually give you a really good amount of resources, to be honest. I think that I probably get a lot of my resources actually from fighting barbarians and barbarian forts. So make sure you're spending your action points down on barbarians. Obviously, I'm not saying only do barbs, still do your daily dispatches. All of that stuff is important. But gathering resources also includes peacekeeping, because you can see killing one level 23 barbarian, I just got 46,000 resources per march that hits it, which is really good. I'm going to get like 200,000 resources every single time I hit it with 5 marches. Really good value for your action points, and that number only goes up the higher level the barbarian is. So you'll notice with a KVK barb from Kingsland, you get like 100,000 resources per barbarian that you kill, which is just absolutely insane. So you'll get like 500,000 resources for 5 marches, and that is really good value. And action points regenerate pretty much for free, so this is more like a proactive way of farming resources, and you should be doing it anytime you're online. The second last tip I can give you for your resources is to save your tokens. Don't open them until you need them, because resource tokens you can take with you anywhere. Whether you get migrated, whether you get zeroed, even if you have to pay a fine, you can fake how many resource tokens you have, So keeping resource tokens on you is really, really important. Having as many resource tokens on hand to activate whenever you need them is going to be really good. It's almost like an emergency stash of resources. Obviously, don't be afraid to use them when you want to. I know a lot of players I've seen just stash their resource tokens and have like billions of resources in tokens but never use them. Yes, you can use them when you go into KVK. I tend to finish my KVK with almost 0 tokens left, so try and use them when you need them. But I wouldn't just activate like 9 million of my wood tokens on a whim. You can see I've got like over a billion total resources between wood and stone. I don't need to activate my tokens, but if I was low or if I needed to heal my hospital or upgrade something, it can be worth activating these tokens. And another trick with these is use all your tokens before you go into your pick one chest, and obviously use all your resource packs before you use your tokens, because they are the lowest value. You don't get to choose what they are. The tokens are set in value and the pick one chests are any value. So really in order, first use your resource packs, then use your tokens, then use your pick one chest. That's probably how I would do it if I were most players. Now, the final tip I can give you to gather as many resources as possible is to have a farm account at the ready. Any farm account is better than none, because 5 extra marchers gathering, even if they're very slow, are 5 million extra resources which you wouldn't have. So having a farm account is really, really good, and there's a few ways you can even go with a farm account. The first way is treating it like a mini account. So you can see here my old farm account, the Cav Syndicate account, is sitting with my Siege Syndicate account. And this Cav Syndicate account is more like a mini account. It's more like a mini account. I kind of farm resources, I fight barbarians with it, I do events with it, and it gives my Siege account all the resources that it's going to need. So I treat it more like a mini account, but I also treat it like a farm at the same time. And if you have the time to do that, and you have 2 accounts at a similar power range, that definitely works very well, because you can see this account actually has a decent amount of tokens, considering I migrated here with pretty much no tokens in my inventory. So just fighting barbarians and doing some events and buying the resource tokens from specific events are going to give you extra amounts of resources to give to your other account. So treating an account like a mini is going to be really, really good. And it means you're going to have more crystal tech, you can actually fight with the account if you so choose, and it gives you more freedom with that account. So having a mini account that's also a farm is one way to run a farm account. The other way, which is how this account used to be run, is just get your account to a good enough level where you can send 5 gathering marches out and just pretty much empty out a resource node, and then just log in 2, 3, 4 times a day, send the gatherers out, log in again later, send the gatherers out, log in again later. Pretty much that's what I did with this account, and that's certainly another viable farming method. You will get a decent amount of resources for it, maybe 100 million between KVKs. If you farm more actively, it can be more. So using a farm account properly is good, and it's going to give you lots of resources. With your farm account, there's also 2 more ways you could go. You could have it as a generic farming account, just farms anything, doesn't really matter, which is kind of like what this account is. Or you can focus in a little bit more on a resource. So for example, if you want more stone, you go Byzantium civilization. If you want more gold, you go with Japan. If you don't log in that much, you go with Spain, so you get extra resources from your production buildings. If you want to get more wood, you go for France, and if you want to get more food, you go for Rome. So if you want to focus in your farming accounts like that, that would definitely work, but it's not going to be the most important thing. Usually you'll just gather anything on these farm accounts, but if you want to focus them, it's certainly an option, and it would certainly be something that is viable. With your farm accounts as well, I recommend just getting those 2 blue pieces of gear. If you have some purple gear, like you can see I do have here, that is also a good thing to have, but it's not something you 100% need. So just having those 2 pieces of blue gear is going to give you value whenever you farm, but even having some purple gear every now and again between your farm account is something that's going to give you value as well. But 2 blue pieces of gear on every march you run is always going to give you value, because you get a grand total of 20% gathering speed for like 6 million resources and a few bones. So it's really, really cheap, and even with farm accounts, I recommend doing it. And obviously, once you reach KVK2, get formations on your farm accounts, because formations, really, really good, just free gathering speed, and it's an amazing thing to have. Other than that, with farms, try focus economic technology more, whether it be stuff that's actually going to increase building speed, or even more focus on those things that increase your gathering speed, like plow and sawmill, which increase production, or whipsaw, which increase gathering speed, or scythe, which increase gathering speed. Stuff like that's all going to be important when you're gathering, and the more gathering speed, the better. So make sure with your farm accounts especially, economic technology is your main focus. The last tip I can give out of every single tip is just make sure with your farm accounts, you upgrade your trading post, because if you're giving resources to your main, you are going to be taxed on it, and the higher level trading post, the less resources that you're going to be taxed on. So for example, a level 1 trading post, which is 35% tax rate, is actually now only 8% at level 25, and you can transfer more resources at a quicker rate with a level 25 trading post. So Really simply, your farm account should focus on maximizing the amount of resources it gets for the lowest amount of resources that you're spending, unless you're treating it like a mini account. Then you have to find a good middle ground between how many resources the account spends and how many it's able to give away. Now, if you found that you got value from today's video in some way, please do consider subscribing to the channel. We are almost at 3,000 subscribers. We are only 33 subscribers away, and your subscription might be the one that gets us over the line. So if you want to be able to get more value videos like this one, do consider subscribing to the channel. It's going to be the best place. And even if you get one tip, you're one tip ahead of every other player in the game. So consider subscribing to the YouTube channel. It is very much appreciated. It supports me as a creator. And to all people who are currently subscribed, a massive thank you to you. And to all the people who just subscribed, an even bigger thank you. Now, I just want to say thank you for watching and hope to see you in the next one.